All right, today we are revisiting our Alaska trip where we hunted moose and caribou. It was myself, Michael, and my wife, Kara. And I tried to get Kara to come, but she didn't want to take off work to go sit in our studio, apparently. So, her loss. We're going to revisit that hunt and talk about some of the lessons we learned. I'm going to talk about some of the logistics that I had done previously to try to figure out for this hunt, and then stuff I would do different in the future if I were to do it again. To set the stage, in Alaska, depending on what you do and what you're hunting for, it's going to be like very different. Like if
absolutely.
Depending on if you're going to be flying in, if you're going to be going on a boat, like there's a lot of different methods and ways that you can go about hunting in Alaska. And so take everything with a grain of salt. This is the way that we did it, and it was unique to our experience. The biggest thing is that we are self-guided. We were doing it on our own. We were going from the road system, so no boats, no planes.
Which is unique for Alaska.
Which is pretty unique because there's just not that many roads. That's just the nature of it is. And that being said, like, pressure is going to be higher on those roads. Yeah. But on the haul road, which we were at, it's 5 miles on either side of the road. You have to use archery equipment.
Yeah, and so if you're as a non-resident.
Well, as anybody, residents too. Right. Yeah. So. And that's one thing to definitely, and that's one of my main points that I'll dive a little deeper in later, but you got to know the regs in and out going to Alaska because there's a lot of differences between residents and non-residents and different units, and you got to know where you're at, what you're hunting, resident, non-resident, there's a lot of differences. But so for our hunt off the road, we didn't have, we had some pack rafts with us, but we never ended up even actually using them.
No. It was a permit.
Yep. So that was another big point. So this was a special permit for the moose. Yeah. So the caribou is over the counter. You can just go up there, buy a caribou tag. But for the moose, I had to draw the permit. It's still archery only within that 5 mile corridor. But that was what the permit allowed me to do. So again, the logistics will change if you're doing a different method. But for us, we needed to have a plan to get the meat home if we were successful. And this is something that you kind of have to have planned out in advance. And so, spoiler alert, we didn't have to get any meat home. If you haven't seen the hunt, go watch it. Go check out the hunt before you watch this video. I highly recommend it. But yeah, so we didn't get any meat, but you still have to have that plan. And we're hopeful we're going to get meat. So there's a lot of different ways you can get the meat home. This is something that I researched a ton going into it. And I imagine if anyone's planning an Alaska hunt, this is like, to me, it was like a big thing. Like, how am I going to get this thing home?
So just like a simple Google search.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're like, well, how, like, getting moose home?
Yeah.
Like, and then also, the added complication last year was COVID. Yeah. You couldn't drive, because that's like, that's one of the easiest ways, is if you just drive all the way up there, just have a freezer or a bunch of coolers in your pickup and drive it back. But that wasn't even an option for us. No. So that's one of the options. But even that, I was trying to, like, figure out, I wanted to be the most cost-effective. The biggest thing with driving is time. Mm-hmm. I was looking at it, I think you might spend a similar amount of money, like especially if you factor in opportunity cost of your time driving up and back, like it's a lot. Mm-hmm. That's one option, but still not. Canada border's still closed as of now. Hopefully that opens up. There's flying it back just as like checked luggage. Yeah. Which from as far as I could tell, to me it seemed kind of worth it for a caribou, not really worth it for a moose. Because a moose is just so much meat.
And was it by pound or like by?
Yeah, so like Alaska Airlines, for example, I don't know, it might be different airlines, but like your max bag is 100 pounds.
Gotcha.
And you're going to pay a premium anything over 50 pounds. So there's like a balance but like once you get over a certain number of bags, it didn't matter if they're over. So I think it's like once you're over 3 bags, it doesn't matter whether they're over 100 pounds or 50 pounds or.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Not, you still pay the extra super expensive baggage price. So for a moose, I can't even imagine how many, depending on how much you processed it down and packaged it. Like you'd probably have to package everything up there, find a way to get it frozen, put it in your coolers or your fish boxes or whatever you did, and then you have to be under 100 pounds for each one, and it would just be so many boxes. I read some mixed reviews of people trying to do it, and some of them like not even. Like they were forced to go find an expediter to ship it back because the airline wouldn't let them. Dang. For like, I don't know if there's like a max limit on like number of bags or like it was too bloody or something along those lines. And then also the rack is a big one. Like with the caribou, the standard protocol to fly it back is like cut in half, put the antlers inside each other, wrap them up, package them, check that as one bag, and then you have your meat in a couple other check bags. The other option is shipping it as a known shipper. So you have to become like a known air cargo shipper with Alaska Airlines. I haven't done this. I think in the future I would like to probably do that. From what I understand, reading forums and stuff, that's probably one of the cheapest and most efficient ways to do it. Because then you're not like checking your bags, you're shipping cargo. But you have to go through a process to become like a known shipper.
Gotcha.
I don't think it's super hard, but it's another logistical hurdle. What we did was went with expediter, kind of. So there's a lot of different kind of expediters. There's like dudes who will do the whole taxidermy, they process all your meat, and then they ship it home for you. Super expensive, like crazy, crazy expensive. I can't even remember. Like I remember looking at the price tag on some of them and be like, no. Like it's like it would have cost like 3 times the amount as we spent on the hunt. And I'm like, no way. So anyway, we went with like kind of like a lower end guy who like he doesn't process anything, doesn't like free. You have to find a way to get it frozen beforehand. The company was called Alaska Trophy Express, and he just like has a route that he drives through Alaska at the end of hunting season and picks up stuff. So you can like, I was gonna drop it off at a taxidermist's shop who I was gonna pay to freeze it, and so he was gonna charge me like $100 or something to freeze it and hold it. Then this dude, the guy with the semi, is gonna refrigerated semi, is gonna come and pick up all my meat that I had already processed, froze, and he's gonna pick up the antlers, and he was gonna drive it back to Montana, and I could pick it up in Butte. And he just has like a route that he just drives back through the Canada, US, and then you can like pick it up at various drop-off locations. That's like the low end, and that was $950, or that's what it would have cost to do a moose. I think it was like $650 or $750 for a caribou, $950 for a moose, which seems super expensive, and it is. But when you start looking at all the options, it's like it's right in there. And I was just like, you're paying a little extra for convenience, but it's like, I don't know. In the future, I think I'll look into the air cargo. The one other thing important to point out about the Alaska Trophy Express was you got to pay a $150 deposit up front. So even though I didn't kill anything, we're out that $150. Like, so it sucks, but I mean that's how the guy makes a living. So he's got to have a plan and know how much room to have on the truck. So moving on. For this, again, we're driving hunt, so that's what I'm talking about. We found a rental place that would rent rigs to us that we could take on the haul road, which was an important distinction because most of the rental car places wouldn't let us take a car up there because this is a rough road.
Yeah, the haul road is not really a road. I mean, there's sections of it that's paved, but like it was pretty rough there in some spots.
When you got semis just hauling ass both directions all the time, so they're making potholes and flinging gravel, and you knock out a windshield pretty easy or something up there. So
a normal rental car company will not rent you.
No.
Like if you go to the airport and expect to rent a rental car and tell them where you're going, they're not going to rent it to you.
No. That's another thing. They charge a premium to be able to take it on the haul road. And so the other option that a lot of people do is rent a U-Haul.
Yeah, and we saw people out there that had them.
If I go back in the future, this is another like learning point. I think if it's 2 people, I would do a U-Haul. But the thing is, all the U-Hauls, no matter what you do, it's a single, like, you got 2 seats basically.
Yeah.
So,
having
3 people would be like, maybe you got a bench seat, but it'd be tight.
And knowing how me and you hunt and our trucks by like mid-hunt.
But if you did 2 people, I think the U-Haul would be worth it.
Yeah.
Like having a U-Haul van or a little box truck or whatever they have available is honestly what, because then it's cheaper for sure. But you would have most likely crappier tires, so more likely to get a flat. So you got to deal with that. And then with the pickup, it was nice to have like I think you can lock the back of U-Hauls, but I think if you had 3 people, it's nice having like the back seat.
That truck that we rented was like definitely it was nice. It was really good for what we were doing.
Yeah, I think we could have even done 4. We could have done 4 in that truck.
Yeah,
but so if you had 4 people, you'd have to do 2 U-Hauls.
Yeah, for sure.
Which would probably put you over the cost of the 1 rental pickup.
Yep.
I asked Kara this morning, I'm like, what were your takeaways? And she's like, plan better for food.
We didn't buy any meat. Remember that?
Yeah. We're gonna be just in Alaska. There's gonna be fish, and we're gonna have like caribou down like first day probably. We're gonna be shooting grouse and ptarmigan. We're gonna have like more fish than we know what to do with. So she said that we should have planned better for food. She said don't let the boys plan the food.
I thought the food was all right. I thought we ate pretty well. We had some good snacks. We could have got some more Cheez-Its.
More Cheez-Its would have been good.
Yeah.
Bring a lot of Cheez-Its.
Our expectation was that like you guys are gonna be shooting ptarmigan. We're gonna be seeing ptarmigan. We bought fishing licenses and we're like, oh, it's Alaska. We're gonna be crushing the fish. I caught one grayling the whole entire trip, and we tried a decent amount. But that's here nor there. Yeah, I thought the food was fine, but I guess we could have gotten some meat, or like brought some meat,
some sort of extra protein, whatever. Yeah, it would have been good.
I think logistically, it may be daunting for someone, like the expenses and stuff. But the big thing is like if you can go out on this trip with a couple friends, it actually isn't really too expensive.
The tags add up.
The tags add up for sure. You just gotta have all your ducks in a row and plan accordingly. It seems like like really think through things like you're talking about, like how am I gonna get this meat home?
Yeah, and if you're trying to cut costs, I think like really think about the number of people, because I think there's like, to me, and maybe there's a formula that makes more sense, but like 3 people, increments of 3 for like what we did. Yeah. Maybe 4. Yeah. You could be tight fit in that 4, like having 4 people split that cost of the rental rig. Yeah. And then know that you're going to be into it for the Caribou tag. I don't know if there is a prices this year. I think it was $650. Then you got another $160 for the hunting license. All in all, if you're doing hunting and fishing, you're going to be $1,000 for caribou fishing, hunting license, just to Alaska Game and Fish. And then obviously you got to.
Yeah, depending. I mean, it just really depends too, because like we camped the whole time too. Yep. And like the area we were, there really was no opportunity to spend money when we were there, because there was like, there was one gas station that was like, we would go there once every few days to get gas. And there was, you could get food there, and that was actually pretty nice to stop there and get. We got food there like once or twice. Mm-hmm. But like we were camping, so there's no lodging cost in that.
You do spend a lot of money on fuel.
Yep. Yeah. And fuel is super expensive up there too. Yeah. I can't remember what it was, but it was like, was it $4 or?
Yeah, at least $4. Yeah, I can't remember, but I'm sure it'll be different in the future. When you start adding up a lot of those costs, it's expensive, but it's still cheaper than flying in almost every circumstance. Yeah. The other thing is when you fly in, like a lot of times you get dropped off at an airstrip, get dropped off at a lake or whatever, you're walking from there. Yeah. And so I still think that in the future, if I do a moose hunt, that's what I want to do. I think I'm going to do some sort of float or a combination of fly and float. But for caribou, I really want to continue to like try the haul road and like master. Like get a caribou down on the haul road. Yes. Yeah, I think for caribou, the cheapest option is still
what we did.
What we did. Yeah.
And the hunting was pretty good.
It was phenomenal. So
it was like
we just didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
Didn't have enough time.
Yeah, we didn't have enough time.
That kind of wraps up the logistics section. Now talk about some hunting tactics and stuff that we learned. I did read a decent amount about caribou hunting going into it, kind of the haul road tactics, but should have looked more into it and taken what people said more seriously. Seeing caribou for the first time and like how they react, it's just like, oh, we can sneak up on these things. You start to get like overly confident. You're like, they're not paying attention. Like, we will be able to sneak up on these things. And it's like, yeah, you can to about 100 yards. Yeah, and then you're screwed. Like, and so they're looking at you like out of the corner of their eye until you get to 100 yards, and then they're like, what are you doing? And then they run away.
They got a 100-yard force field around them.
Yeah. I think we wasted a lot of time messing around in scenarios that we were never going to get close enough. Yeah. And that was a big takeaway. Like, in hindsight, we should have spent a lot more time just finding the scenarios that were probably going to work. The tactic that most people use and that are successful is you kind of watch the caribou, which direction are they heading, and only go if you know you can get in front of them. Mm-hmm. Because they'll bed down, but a lot of these caribou are just on the move. And so it's like, okay, they're walking that direction, need to find some cover, whatever, a mile in front of them, hide there and hope they walk by. And that's kind of like, that from what most people we talk to, that's the tactic to be successable.
And we saw people that shot them.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. That's what they told us they did.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. If you see some bedded and they're in a spot that looks like you can sneak up on them, do it. But it's just most of the time they're in such open terrain that's like, this is.
I think it's important to tell them too, like how, like you were just saying, how open the terrain is. What's that stuff called again?
All the tussocks.
Yeah, all the tussocks, and it's like it's kind of like antelope hunting, except for. I guess there's some spots that you can go antelope hunting where there's a little bit more topography, but it's like it's pretty flat out there. Yeah. Like we were probably at sea level, right? Like pretty close to it.
Yeah, and I think it depends. Yeah, because there was some areas that had some more terrain, but mostly caribou we were into seemed to be in the flat.
And they're migrating, correct? Like they're coming out from their.
No, they're coming from the ocean up into the Brooks Range. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's another thing. Look up the migration patterns. Kind of where they're going to be in general. It's different every year. Like there's no like it's not like they walk this same line every year. It's different. And any of the biologists will tell you that. But definitely research that. Try to get a general feel for where they are going to be. There's a lot of scenarios in hindsight looking back. It's like, yeah, we might as well try. Yeah. But it's just like realistically, we shouldn't even mess with it. It's like it's a low probability of success. It's all open. There was no cover to hide behind. It's just like don't even mess with it. Yeah. Especially like in the scenario that we were in where there were a ton of caribou. There's just like there's a lot of opportunity to go find other ones. Like if it's a low chance of success, don't waste your time because you're going to waste 2 hours messing around to not get one. It's like go find the scenarios where you're actually likely going to get a shot. Like find some cover, find some terrain, work with that because there was enough around that we did find those scenarios, but we should have focused more on the high chance of success and the low chance of success.
I think you can take that tip too and apply it to like a lot of spot and stock, kind of like we're talking like early season spot and stock deer.
Oh yeah.
Or antelope hunting with archery equipment is like really thinking about your strategy on each stock and like you said, like going after those opportunities where you think you have like an 80% chances of success. Like even like a 20% success chance. Think about like if it's 80% or more, then spend your time and get in there and have a good strategy. Because like you said, like we got there, I'd never seen a caribou in my life. I don't think Kara had either. Nope. You're the only one who's seen caribou, and we're like trying to go after every opportunity, and it was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah, and I don't have a ton of regrets because it was super fun. Yeah. But like, if you want to be successful, so going like in the future, definitely gonna put a little more effort into.
Yeah, and I thought too, like when we were there, I was like, gosh, you'd have to be able to shoot super far to be able to kill one of these things. But the guys that we talked with that wound up shooting them, one of them said he shot one at like 20-some yards, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely doable. You just got to, choose your battles, right? That's a good kind of talk about caribou for moose. We got our butts kicked on the moose hunt.
It was tough.
We really did. And I think one of the biggest things that I have to continually remind myself of is that moose are just really low density animals. Yeah. If you're going to get into a bunch of them, that's just really lucky, basically. Yeah. Like you're probably not going to see very many. And that's just hard because like we covered so much ground. We would hike knobs. We'd just, cover ground and glass and call and glass and call and just didn't see anything for a long time.
If you were up on the hills and knobs that we were glassing on with us and looked down, you'd be like, this is moose habitat. This is exactly what I think of like a moose living in. That big river down there where like that was just, I was just waiting every time. Like we went and walked that river bottom a couple times and I just was waiting to like come around the bend and see a big old bull moose. But yeah, it was weird.
And then, so here's another thing. Like this is very specific to this hunt because this was on the haul road. We're 5 miles, archery only, 5 miles from the road. And that's not a typical moose hunting scenario. So this is, again, like this is only applying to a very select people. But the unfortunate truth that we found out about this hunt in particular is that the guys who were successful were just driving the roads. Yeah. And it's because you could cover a ton of ground in a short amount of time, and you just drive to a vantage point, and you can look over miles of country. No moose. Drive to the next vantage point. Look over miles of country. And that's exactly why I'll never apply for this tag too. Because that's not what I want to do.
It's not how you like to hunt.
It's just like that's how people are successful, and if that's what you want, then that's fine. Yeah. But it's just like I don't have a desire to do that.
Yeah, you wanted to shoot one over there. Like I think we were like 2 miles is good. Like because what we would do is we would hike off to these knobs and like. it would definitely be a haul to get those moose out, but that's like the experience you're kind of looking for.
Oh, for sure. And then when we did like, you know, venture further off the road, we'd be up river corridors too, where we could just like get it down to the river and then float it out on the pack rafts was kind of the idea. But and I think that could work, but after talking to some of the other hunters, it's just like, no, these guys are just cruising roads, and it was effective. Like that's the way that people kill them there.
And I'm sure you're going to touch on this too. I don't know if you have it in your notes, but with not only are they a low density animal, but the animal you're allowed to harvest as a non-resident is a
giant.
You giant.
Either 50 inches wide or have 4 brow tines on one of the palms.
Yeah. So 50 inches wide is a really big moose.
Yeah.
The one that we saw.
We finally saw a moose, and then it's immediately like binoculars, like not even close. it's like you're like hopeful. You're like, I can't even pretend that he's even close. It's just like, and then the local, the resident who they didn't have the restrictions that non-residents did, he shot it. And what was it, 43, 44 inches wide, I think?
Yeah, it's a good call. Because I was getting excited. I mean,
just to see a moose.
If I would
have saw a cow, I'd have been stoked. Moose!
I don't know how many days we had gone at that point. It was like kind of towards the end of the hunt, wasn't
like
it?
6 days or
something.
something.
Not seeing a moose.
Yeah. We saw a lot of bears and wolves. That was cool. That was super cool. Yeah. And that's the thing. That's another good takeaway that Kara was really good at being there. Is just like, I was getting down like on myself. It's like we go 6 days and not see a moose, and like, man, like we put all this time and effort in. Like I want to get a moose, but like we're not even seeing a moose. And you're in Alaska though, and so it's like if you go up there, like just make it fun. Like and that's
she did make it so
Kara
much
made
fun.
it fun, and like even if the situation is not what you expected, it's like man, we're still in a super cool spot, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Like in hindsight, like wouldn't change anything. It was great to just like have that experience and see that country and see all those wolves and bears and just to see the landscape. But
that's something we talked about on my hunt too, the Idaho one, is like who you hunt with is super important, and I think it's even more important when you're going and doing these long trips that are like very far away in Alaska, where you know it's going to be cold, it's going to rain the whole time, and like you got to have a GFA, man. You got to got to have it, and like I think it's so true. Just like for hunting in general, like selecting your hunting partners, like you only get to hunt so much. So like don't waste your time spending it hunting with a Debbie Downer. And like if you do, be close enough with that person to be able to tell them to knock it off. You know.
Yeah.
Like if I'm down, we're close enough where you're just like, dude, you're like, come on, you're fine.
We're outside.
Yeah.
To wrap it up, I kind of want to talk about what I'm going to do in the future. And then I say what I'm going to do because I'm going back to Alaska.
Yeah.
So
you go kill moose? Is that what you want to do? Or
I want to do both.
Okay.
And so one of the big things, though, is I think it needs to be 2 separate trips.
Yeah.
So go after moose, that's one trip. Go after caribou, that's a separate trip. So I'll start with caribou. Like going back for caribou, I want to do it on the haul road. I think that is a fun way to do it. I think it's a cost-effective way to do it. I think it'd be super fun to fly into a place, too, but it's just like, part of me just like, I want to conquer that. Like I want to get one off the haul road with the archery equipment. It'd be super cool.
Yeah, and isn't there a possibility that you can fly into some of these areas and they're like not in that area, or is it?
Oh yeah. No, you can definitely. I mean, that's what a lot of people do. You go to an airstrip and then you can fly in.
Yeah.
Whether you fly into a airstrip and then float down, or just like get picked back up at that airstrip, or fly into a lake. It kind of depends. Like you could hit the migration really good and be in the middle of them, or you might not. You might not have any caribou around.
Well, and if you fly in too, you're able to use a rifle, right?
Yeah. So basically, as long as you're off that 5 mile corridor, you can use a rifle. And then also another thing is you can pay transporters. There's dudes who will like airboat up these rivers and get you off that 5 mile corridor, and then you can use a rifle. Yeah. But you pay a bunch of money. Yeah. That's again like. When you get transported into some of these areas, you're going to pay a bunch of money to get there.
Gotcha. That'd be cool, though.
Yeah, no, and so there's a lot of, like, different, but for me, I do want to try to do it off the haul road.
With archery gear.
But with the caveat, too, I think if I go back, I'd like to do it with, like, a group of people, like, have some friends and stuff, and then have at least one rifle. And so if you do get really frustrated, like, and then you can hike off the 5 mile,
Yeah.
and then you can use a rifle and kill one. And then just, if you got together as a team, I think 3 people would be a good amount to pack be a comfortable amount to pack a caribou out.
Yeah.
And then also give ourselves a lot more time. So
and we were there for 10 days. So
we were, but the biggest thing I messed up on is the caribou area closed 2 days after we got there. So we had 2.5 days to hunt caribou, and then no more. I just didn't pay enough attention, basically, because the other unit that we could hunt caribou in was open longer the whole time we were going to be there. I'm like, oh, well, we'll just hunt in that unit. There's no caribou in that unit. They weren't there. They weren't there yet. And so it's like, you maybe would get lucky and they'd be in that unit, but they just weren't there yet. Yeah. So all the caribou were still in that unit that closed early. For non-residents, it was open for residents, of course. Residents can do whatever they want in Alaska. Basically, that's the main takeaway. Residents can do whatever they want for like $50, and then non-residents, you pay a bunch of money to be very restricted. And it makes sense because, like, obviously there's the demand
they
to
can do it.
Like, they can charge it, might as well. Like, they're making a bunch of money for Alaska Game and Fish.
I'm still going back to Alaska.
Yeah, I'm still going to pay that excessive money to have higher regulations put upon me.
Yeah.
It's still worth it.
Yeah.
It makes sense for them for sure. So I definitely want to give myself more time and know where the caribou are going to be at, like roughly in their migration, to make sure that you can hunt the unit. So it'd be fun to have like a full 10 days to hunt hunt caribou. And the rifle would be, kind of a fun backup plan.
Yep. And being able to, I think you can pack raft some of those.
Yeah, there's a couple rivers that you could potentially hike up and then pack raft out to.
Yeah.
So that's an option as well. So that's the main takeaway for caribou. For moose, I think if I go back, I'm not going to apply for that permit anymore. I want a boomstick. I want to take a rifle. Archery, I'm good. I want to shoot one with a rifle. And then I'm willing to, if I do the moose again, I'll invest more money to have a better chance of success.
Yeah.
Whether that's flying in, floating, combination, something.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different options, but I think I'm good on the archery only moose. There's definitely chances of success hunting off the road, don't get me wrong, but I think I'm at the point where I'm probably just willing to I'm not going to go guided. I'm not going all the way in. I'm not going to spend like $20,000, but like spend like $5,000 to have like fly in and
get one.
Hopefully. Honestly, I'm more excited about the caribou right now.
Yeah.
I want to do the caribou.
The caribou is so much fun. So. And the moose was too, like being in that country and the places it takes you. It's really cool.
Yeah.
We just couldn't, there just wasn't a lot of them.
Just wrapping it up on ending on like reiterating the positive attitudes, like even though you're not seeing any moose, like, oh man, just because I was being a little
yeah, I mean, me too.
A little pain for a little bit, and then Kara's like, what are you doing? Like, we're in Alaska, we're not shooting any moose. Like,
basically,
who cares?
Having Kara on the summit was the biggest perk.
Yeah, just have Kara come on your hunt.
Things to take away from this hunt. Bring Kara on all hunts.
Just maintaining a positive attitude. It's just like, even though the goal you might have, like, don't be super narrow-minded and like only thinking about, we need to kill a moose. It's like, hey, I'm in Alaska. This is awesome. Like, soak it in.
Towards the end there, we did see a couple more cows.
Yeah, it was the day we had to get back to the airport. We were driving back, and we saw 2 cows.
Yeah.
I was like, you gotta be kidding.
Yeah.
Because there might have been bulls. I mean, it's a rut. There could have been bulls right in there. It's like, God.
I probably wouldn't go back because of the antler restrictions.
Yeah, it'd be fun to hunt somewhere where you could just shoot any bull.
Yeah.
Because that's nerve-wracking, too.
Yeah.
To, like, have to, like... Because even the brow tine thing, there's some if it's not, like, a perfect 4 brow tines that you can obviously see, like, there's some subjectivity there if it's, like, on the palm, or, it's got to be, like, 4 brow tines.
Yep.
That would be the easiest way. But the 50-inch thing, it's like, whoo, better get real good at judging that. Or I think it would have been at least 55 before I would have gone after it.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the main takeaways. I mean, it was awesome.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Always. I'm going back to Alaska.
I'm definitely going back to we're going back to Alaska here in like a month.
Yeah.
So. Southeast Alaska. But yeah, those are our lessons that we learned. I don't know if we learned enough to be successful next time, but hopefully. And hopefully if you are planning a trip to Alaska, this is at least a little bit helpful.
Yeah, go hunt in Alaska. It's a good time.
Yeah, put questions down in the comments if you have them, and we'll try to get to them. But thanks for watching.